We're back on WUSB with Coltt Winter Lepley. He has a self-titled debut EP out, and the song you just heard, a fairly depressing one, Crack Cocaine. I mean, there are plenty of depressing ones on this album, but I feel like
Yeah.
that's the most depressing one. Um, how real was that for you?
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, that's kind of my brand. Yeah, there's a quote from Towns Van Zandt I always like to reference. He says, "There's the blues, and then there's everything else." Um, yeah. Crack cocaine. It was I wrote it the morning one of my good friends' mugshots came up on the ticker on Facebook, and he got booked for crack cocaine, and I got to thinking about, a number of folks I've graduated with have passed away from, overdoses and things, and I lost a cousin to fentanyl. In the point of view in the story in the song is from somebody watching somebody else suffer through addiction, and so in that capacity, I mean, it was very real. I similar to the other to your address to you. I don't know too many people who have lived this, through the recent opioid crisis and fentanyl crisis and things, and don't at least know somebody, even adjacently or roundaboutly, who suffered with addiction. I think addiction across the board is super common, and we should, just really have the base level empathy for folks who are going through that, and hopefully at the end of the song, you feel that, you know.
Yeah, it's a difficult reality. You are, unfortunately located in a region of the country that probably has to face that reality a little more directly than others.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. Yep.
Tell me about your experience, or tell me about sort of the community experience there.
Well, I'm in Bedford, Pennsylvania. About a half hour away from us in Cambria County is Winburn, Pennsylvania, who was like one of the capitals of the American opioid crisis for a number of years. Johnstown, Altoona, you know, it's kind of the tri-county area I often assume with home. Um, Got to see a lot of that, and there seems to be, I mean, it's not disconnected for all the reasons that we already know. It's not like jobs are down. Um, a lot of industries left. We're North Appalachia, but we're also like Rust Belt. We're close to Pittsburgh and Johnstown and these places that have produced, things like pig iron and steel and all those types of things. And as those industries have tanked, opportunities tanked, cost of living goes down, real estate goes down, everything does. And so when you're faced with a hopeless situation, joblessness, and things look pretty bleak, you don't have the money to leave. The old folk adage is too too old to work, too young to die. Like it's tough, and I think sometimes people get offered another pathway that is ultimately really harmful. But if it's a distraction, considering all of the circumstances, I'm not anybody to blame somebody, and that's kind of what the song's about. Is we got to have empathy for the situation and the people going through it. There are neighbors.
Yeah, and it's not just the people doing the drugs that are going through it, it's very much everyone around them too. The song really gives me a sense that even as you're looking at your friend's mugshot and he's very much alive, just given experience, knowing where the trajectory goes, you start mourning him right away.
Yeah, yeah, and that's in the I forget which verse it is now, but the line about we had warning, is it's just like, I've been very lucky not to know that many folks who've close to me directly who have experienced like cancer, but I imagine if you have a terminal illness or an addiction that's lasted in a capacity that things look pretty bad. I think it's a very human reaction to start the process of mourning. Sorry about the motorcycle going by there, but uh, I just think it's a natural. You try to protect yourself from those things, and I think that's where people are surprised if someone they know becomes addicted. It kind of has a far reach, further than they expect.
Yeah. Even even here on Long Island, where it's not the scale of the problem it is where you live. My brother works at a drug and alcohol counseling center. My mother really went through it. It's everywhere. And I know sort of exactly what you mean by seeing someone and saying, "Oh, this could go downhill very quickly," because it does.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a fight, sometimes it's quick. I will say, since I've written songs like Crack Cocaine and Toilet Wizard, um, when I have a live show and people are so moved by those songs, it's been a privilege to have people feel comfortable to share, like similar to you, like those types of stories. And just I think if those songs inspire people to talk about these things in a comfortable way, that really moves the needle in some fashion. And if my songs help a little bit, just a tiny bit in the community to help people have comfortable conversations, I think that's like the biggest, the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, well, I know the conversations directly with the parties impacted aren't always easy, but it can be a little easier talking about it when sort of the idea is introduced to the room.
Yeah, I think people just sometimes forget that they can give themselves permission to have feelings and talk about the hard things with the people they love. And at the end of the day, if you can't do that with your people, you know, that's your tribe. You gotta find the people to support you. And I think the phones and social media and the political climate of the world and everything has really made it kind of a divisive divisive place. But yeah, man, if people hear the songs and they think they have an avenue of communication, that's really special, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, you talk about the world being a divisive place, and one of the things I feel like we're all seeing as a very direct result of all the division is that it's not easy to find solutions or have a group of people willing to work with each other to find a solution to a common problem. Um, is there anything that you've seen, whether it's personal or on a larger scale, any responses that you've seen to the drug and alcohol crisis that you've noticed maybe does a little something to alleviate the pain?
It seems like there's been a coherent shift towards helping people, and like I know I just played a show out in Pittsburgh, and they were passing out Narcan, and I keep Narcan on my person all the time. It shows. I keep Narcan in my truck, just because, like I said, it doesn't even have to be somebody you have suspected of being an addict. That's the thing about it. Anybody can be an addict at any time for any reason. And I think there's been some warming up to that notion. There's been some more like dry out bed centers pop up around this region. My last year of undergrad, I'm post grad school and things now. I'm getting to be elderly, but we organized an entire an entire health conference about addiction. We brought in senators and congressmen from both sides and former addicts and doctors, and it just seems like people. I, I, I don't know if they've just like finally warmed up to the information, or there's been so many people be addicted that you can't ignore the problem. You know what I mean? Uh, but I do think things have shifted. Winber, for example, that I talked about, has really cleaned up the. It seems like the drugs have been cleaned up, and there's less addicted folks, and so hopefully, knock on wood, but I'd like to think things are heading in a good direction.
Yeah, that really impresses me, by the way. I mean, getting elected officials from both parties to
Yeah,
do
it was tough.
one thing, that's that's extraordinary in
Now
this.
that would have been 2018, which was kind of right in the middle of when the worst of the crisis was happening. But yeah, man, if you can get uh, an effort of both sides to come together, first of all, it's a real problem, and second of all, they sat there and kind of smugly shook their heads in agreement to a lot of the things. So that was, I agree. It was a bit of a miracle.
So, so yeah, even more of a miracle that it seems like they might have actually been doing something about it.
Well, I think it was certainly a good shaking hands, kissing baby session for them. But I think the people, I think, mostly had to reach in our own pockets and make the change. But you can't do that sometimes without the help of the public official. So they they showed up, and that was more than I expected, to be honest. And yeah, I it all just comes back to good people. I do think a really cool thing about our area is we're still community oriented, and whether you're on either side of the political aisle, if your neighbor's house burns down or floods or something, everybody still at the end of the day tries to help, it feels like. um, and I understand that might not be everywhere in the world, and that's not every instance here either, but it does feel like that through line of community still tries to exist, so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I have an aunt in Pennsylvania. She votes one way, her neighbors vote another, but when it comes to taking care of the little animals they all have running around their houses and barns, it's like, oh, well, you're going on vacation. Don't worry, I got them.
Right, and I think that was, I mean, identity politics has really infected you know a lot of people, and I think that's such the nature of what this place is supposed to be, and it's really special, and I think that's fewer and far between these days, but that's the dream, and I always hope that music can be a unifier that way, because everybody, left or right, knows a blue collar worker or is a blue collar worker, and knows somebody who's been addicted or has experienced loss. And it's kind of these universal human experiences that I try to capture. And um, it's funny. I'm certain there's a lot of folks from both sides that come to shows, and they get along really well and sing together for a couple hours, and it's like, let's retain this energy. But
Yeah, I definitely have my theories about that, but you know, it it seems as though you've got a real strong start to your career. Definitely impressed with this debut. Uh, Coltt Winter Lepley, welcome to the scene.
thank you very much.
So on this show, I like uh, I like closing things out by having my guest pick a song. The only rule is you can't have had anything to do with creating it.
Okay.
So I invite you to select something that you suspect captures a bit of that universal human experience.
Okay. Well, that's a broad. All right, let me lock in here. Okay. Let's do, you know what? Let's do John Prine's Hello in there, which is kind of a reminder to be kind to old people.
Yeah, they can be pretty awesome.
They can. Sometimes they just need a hello. So, yeah.
All right, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate your time. Thank you.